2 here on College Football Addiction. Boys, we made it. Last week, week 0 was a good little appetizer, especially that opening game, but we are finally here for week 1 action. Are you guys what's your plan for Saturday? Maybe that's a good way to intro it. Cole, are you going up to Columbus? Are you home, or what's your situation? And then Tom, what are you doing too?
I'm filling in on a radio show in the morning on Saturday here in Houston. So I have got prep starting at 7 a.m. Be mind fixated on what is going to be a full day of college football. Reaction shows after the LSU Clemson game, reaction shows after the Alabama FSU game, reaction show after Texas versus Ohio State. So it's going to be a busy day for me up here in Houston.
You will be reacting. I will be somewhere in the woods in Helen, Georgia, in a beautiful cabin. I'm looking forward to continued use of this summer as much as humanly possible. And in my spare time, I will be bagging on Michigan fans who we hit right in the feelings last week. And I just want you to know that now that I know that you're upset, I'm not going to stop. This is my new favorite thing, and I know we're going to talk about Bryce Underwood later on in this show, but knowing that you're all such sensitive babies makes me feel fantastic. Yes, football's back. Let's go.
Dude, it's so funny, too, because when FSU won in 2013, like nothing could get me down for like 4 or 5 years. Like we'd lose a game.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you're riding that high for a while. And now I'm like super sensitive because we've been terrible for so long. But like then, like for a couple of years, I had like and I know they went to the playoff the next year too, so it kind of continued. But like nobody could upset me back then because I was like, look, we just won it. We just won it. And for Michigan, I know last year wasn't what they wanted, but again, they beat the team that won it all. You know, Ohio State fans are still more mad about that than they are winning it. Like, what are you sad about? So
they literally stole a national championship. They're complaining about it.
Gosh, come on, guys! There's bigger fish to fry. I'll be in Tallahassee. We've got a tailgate. We'll watch the early game, obviously Ohio State, Texas. And then, I don't expect to be in a great mood after. We'll talk about that game in a moment. But, hopefully I'm pleasantly surprised while I watch the LSU Clemson game at night, which I am very much looking forward to. And we'll talk about all 3 of those games here in a minute. Cole, you got any big takeaways from week 0? Obviously, Iowa State gets the win. I think we went 0 for 3 on that. So congratulations to us. The Michigan fans are right. We don't know ball. Iowa State gets the win. How many times can we throw in a Michigan troll in this show?
I'm going to set the over-under at 6.5.
So there's like 3 already.
Do we have a gambling sponsor yet? Because I would have nominated that first thing.
But week 0 takeaways quickly, and then we'll talk about what everybody wants to talk about. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here at the Power 2. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Cole, I'll shut up and let you talk.
Number 1, Jalen Daniels in this Kansas offense is going to be a lot of fun this year. I think that it's very unfitting of us to not give credit where credit was due. They were one of the hottest teams down the stretch. If they just in the first half of the season found a way to close out the fourth quarter, they would have been in Arlington. They would have been potentially in the college football playoff, and they may have been the talk of everything going into this season. They had their stadium. They went back home for the first time in over a year. They dominated. You watch as Jalen Daniels had over 300 yards of offense, 3 touchdowns on the day, 31-7 victory. They were in control that entire afternoon, and if that's going to be the offense that we see in Lawrence throughout the year, I may end up switching some picks around and moving up Kansas a little bit higher in my pecking order of dominance for the Big 12. I think that offense is really fun. It wasn't fully healthy, but there's a lot to like about the identity of what direction, again, Lance Leipold takes this team, and a veteran quarterback does wonders. And the other thing is that at some point, Tyson Helton has got to become a Power 4 head coach. It feels like every single year, Western Kentucky is replacing its offense coordinator and replacing its quarterback. They go out, they get a dynamic duo, they pair together extremely well, and lo and behold, they're in the Conference USA Championship. They haven't won a Conference USA Championship, but Maverick McIver was the storyline of all storylines, in my opinion, when it came to Saturday evening. 400 plus total yards of offense, 4 touchdowns on the day. He's a new dude that's coming on in from Abilene Christian. Once again, we talk about the dynamics of an offensive coordinator and quarterback pairing working together outside of their former school at a new location. It hit in most places. It's probably going to hit in Salt Lake City. I think it's going to hit in Norman, Oklahoma. It's hitting out in Bowling Green, Kentucky. We saw Western Kentucky belt to ass against Sam Houston State, and largely due to who I would say after week 0 is the Heisman favorite, Maverick McIver, who also Best name in college football. One of the top 5 name for a quarterback in college football. If I had to hear that I was going up against Maverick McIver, I would be shitting bricks a little bit if I was a defensive lineman. I would. I'm sorry. That dude's cool. That dude's like a 1950s cool, James Dean level stuff.
Yeah, for me, looking at week 0, Kansas State, I thought was the better team. Ultimately, Iowa State, credit to them. They pulled it out. Just a sloppy Big 10, Big 12 game in Ireland. And I do have to ask, considering we have TJ here on the show, as a coach, as a like a team, as a roster, like the trip to Ireland seems like a real challenge, especially starting off in week 0. And, it's a preseason type atmosphere, no matter who you're playing. Like, it's never going to be perfect. And you're going over there and you're playing on a field that's not meant for football, American football, that is. And the weather's a little rough, and you're in this country that is naturally a distraction, a place that you want to be in. So I don't know what the experience was exactly for Florida State and Georgia Tech last year when that game went down, but it does seem like it's a great idea, and they're probably going to keep paying for it to happen, all that sort of stuff. But the quality of the game is not what we'd hoped it would be. And ultimately, I don't think I necessarily learned anything other than Rocco Becht was who I thought Rocco Becht could be. Avery Johnson looked good. He wasn't the reason they lost. And Kansas State is still going to have a chance to make this up. This isn't going to kill either team, but it just kind of felt like a sloppy middle of the Big 10, Big 12 game.
Yeah, I mean, so last year we actually got perfect weather. Like, it was beautiful outside. It was crappy all week when I was over there. London was kind of nice, but crappy all week in Dublin. And then the game was actually perfect. Sun was out. I've got great pictures. There was no rain. It sprinkled a little bit in the second half. And this year was the complete opposite of that, right? Like, just an absolute slop fest. What was it, 7-7 at halftime? Like, there were one drive for each team. Although I guess, you had a muff punt, you had a fumble inside the one. Truly was reminiscent of that
span of 5 minutes. I mean, that was Big 12 football at its finest.
Remember, this is really specific, and if you're not an LSU fan or an FSU fan, you may not remember this. The same exact thing happened in week 1 against LSU and Florida State in 2022. LSU muffs a punt inside their own 10, and then Florida State runs a toss on the 1 yard line, and I'm like, oh, look, a Brian Kelly special. Oh, look, a Mike Norvell special. Like, it's the exact same thing happens over in Dublin, which that was in a dome, at least by Florida State and LSU. Like, this was happening in the rain in Dublin. So, yeah, I mean, fourth quarter was phenomenal. You got you felt, both teams got their footing, literally and figuratively, I guess. But I think that, yeah, it's ugly, it's nasty, but you know what you're signing up for, right? Like, I think the money you get from the game, the Big 12, especially being like front and center of the college football world on Saturday, I mean, it's all worth it. I mean, the biggest difference to me just came down to, Kansas State could not stop a nosebleed. I mean, they were getting so much push, like 4 and 5 yards down the field, and every run was going for 7-8 yards. And, when I think about that, that probably, trench play carries, right? Like, that would have happened in Ames or in Manhattan too. So I think the result kind of probably ended up being about the same as it likely would have been. I mean, shoot, cojones on Kleiman for going for that fourth down, which I think he got in real time, but not enough to overturn it. Maybe that didn't end up, even mattering, because didn't they score right after? And then, they got a long touchdown on the very next play by Avery, who had a nice throw there. But yeah, I mean, they're going to keep doing this. Is it the best situation for both teams? Probably not. But I mean, last year you run into a really good weather day and it looks good, but I think you've had about 2 good weather days in the 11 games they've played. So you just kind of, I guess, know what you're signing up for at this point.
Can either of you come to the conclusion that Matt Campbell had the under? Either of you can. I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, somebody in his family had the under, because Carson Hansen, whether he was in or not, the fact of the matter was they didn't review it. He didn't try to review it. And then when he's down at the 1 centimeter line, instead of saying, you know what, my defense has been playing well most of the day, let them just get another stop. No, I'm going to knee it because I have the under. I have the under, and I want to make sure that I win a little bit of a buck back home.
How about and maybe it doesn't matter, because I think things that happen early in the year don't end up mattering as much. But like when you're talking about like style points and stuff, like, is it better to have a 10-point win against again, the BCS era? Would he have kneeled that down? Like, would he have gone for a little bit of style points against a ranked opponent, a top 25 team, which I think Kansas State will still finish in the top 25? In the BCS era, would he have gone for that, right? And obviously, we all know the right play in football is to go get the win and try and go down to the 1 yard line, which obviously he didn't try to do. It just kind of is how it worked out. But I wonder, in the BCS era, would he have gone for that? Because yes, Kansas State we saw them score on a 1-play touchdown drive just before that. Could they have come back? Absolutely. Their chances of doing that are very low, right? With no timeouts and everything else. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting, but yeah, you could see Matt Campbell immediately. They pan to the sideline. He's down, like knowing the right football play. And again, I don't remember which book tweeted it out, but one of the books tweeted like somebody had put like a $30,000 bet on the over, and that forearm cost that guy a lot of money. So, I guess never bet what you can't lose. If you have a problem, call the helpline. But I'd have been annoyed if that was my $30,000.
Matt Campbell is a man of the people who took the under, because he also took the under. Mm-hmm. One final thought when it comes to college football this past weekend. We had everything in the Hawaii game. Like, can we agree that the Hawaii-Stanford game was awesome just because of every single storyline? Andrew Luck comes on in. They fire Troy Taylor. They bring in Frank Reich. You have Hawaii with the run-and-shoot offense, Timmy Chang trying to change the culture. A freshman quarterback who really looks good ends up getting hurt and playing on one leg the entire second half. A former redshirt senior 6-year from Oregon State who retired as quarterback is now starting for Stanford. On a third down, gotta have play, gets a 42-yard sprint down the field, makes it look easy. 2 plays later, a pick that sets up a game-winning field goal by a kicker from Japan who learned how to play football off of YouTube. And the same mismanagement clock issues that happened in Frank Reich's NFL career carried on over to his college career. Literally, that game had everything except for a win for Stanford, who, surprisingly, I don't know if they're going to win a game now this year.
I know. All those reasons you just said, it's like, this is the greatest sport in the world. Like, we talked the whole offseason about all the off-the-field stuff and the money in the NIL and what are they going to do with the playoff. I'm like, this is the greatest sport in the world. But yeah, I do worry for Stanford. And also, this sucks for the ACC's image. Oh, my God. That is, like, granted, they're hardly an ACC team, and I know TJ's probably going to be like, it's not going to matter at the end of the year. But, like, not a great first showing for them. And I'm also curious to see if that game in Ireland between Iowa State and Kansas State comes back to haunt the Big 12 when it comes to playoff time, but we'll see.
It was a horrible look to add them to the ACC. So Tom is exactly right on my thoughts there.
Technically, it made no sense, but there you go.
Yeah. So it's just par for the course for the conference. So here we go. Hopefully a better week for the ACC this weekend. One of my bold predictions was that the ACC would have a better head-to-head record, I think, than the SEC. I don't know if that was week 1 or over the year or not. Cole rolled his eyes so hard they almost got stuck in his head when I did that. But we will need a good week out of the ACC to get that happening. All right, Oklahoma. Sheesh. You can tell it's week 1. I'm not in full season. That was my false start there. Ohio State and Texas. There's a good endpoint for you there, Nate. Guys, I hate to do this. I hate to be negative about anything, but why am I not as hyped about this game as I should be? Like, I don't know. I just don't think it matters.
Honestly, you don't even have to ask us questions. You can just answer your own question.
I'm curious.
I don't think it matters. I just don't think it matters. I don't think either. It matters for seeding. That's what I'll say. It matters for seeding. What both these quarterbacks look like in week 1 is not what they'll look like in week 11, 12 when we get there. And so I feel like I should be more hyped for this game than I am. You know why? Because I miss traditionalism and I miss the BCS. And if one of these teams lost this game 12 years ago, they would have to be perfect the rest of the way to make it. And that's no longer the case. And I hate that. And I hate to, I don't know, somebody take us back up. Tom, you start us off here. Ohio State, Texas. But maybe I'm just an old curmudgeon on week 1 and I shouldn't be.
I understand your point is that there's a very strong chance both these teams make the college football playoff. So it's just a matter of what seed they wind up in. So in terms of like postseason stuff, I get your point. In a vacuum, I'm very excited to see this game. We talked about it a lot during the offseason. The sheer volume of storylines coming into it is fascinating. I think the decision by Ohio State to have Julian Sayin be their starting quarterback, while that didn't surprise a lot of people, it was a little bit more of a battle in camp from what we understand than a lot of people expected between Julian Sayin and Lincoln Keenholz. I am Very curious to see what this Ohio State offense looks like. What does the running game look like now that Judkins and Henderson are off to the National Football League? Do they have the same pop and explosivity? Does Julian Sayin, who looks like an underclassman, like he looks like a small guy, can he hold up for this entire season? Is Brian Hartline, as the offensive coordinator, going to ask a very young and inexperienced quarterback to throw 30 to 35 times a game, given that you have Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, Max Clare, this outstanding core of pass catchers? So I'm curious to see what that is. What does Matt Patricia look like on this defense, which saw a lot of pieces go off to the National Football League and has had some turnover? Ryan Day, the Ohio State fans still like him, that sort of thing. Steve Sarkisian and company got pretty damn far in the college football playoff last year. A lot of reasons to be excited, but is Arch Manning for real? And I think the expectations for Arch Manning are unfair and unrealistically high. But if this game comes and goes, Texas loses, and Julian Sayin looks better than Arch Manning, that's going to be a big takeaway, because I think everybody's expecting the inverse, at least in terms of the quarterback performance. Who wins this thing? I think I like Texas in this one, but it is a coin flip game, in my opinion.
Julian Sayin has a lot of positivity going his way in this matchup because, number one, he has 4 starting offensive linemen that have seen experience, whether playing during the regular season last year or the national championship. 3 of these guys weren't starters week 1, but by the time that we got to the end of the year, they were seeing first-team reps. So the fact that you have 4 guys that have already understood kind of what the expectations are already is a big benefactor. You have 2 top 10 wide receivers on the outside, and you already mentioned another one. Brandon Innes, for a lot of schools, probably would be high-end number 2. For even some, a low-end number 1. That's how talented he is. Max Clare, another really good pass catcher. Arguably the best tight end in the Big Ten, not named Tyler Warren a season ago. Now joins a pass-happy offense headlined by Brian Hartline, who's a receivers coach turned offensive coordinator. He also had to fight to win the job. We all expected him to be QB1, but I give a lot of credit where credit's due to Ryan Day. Instead of naming him the starting quarterback, he made sure that he earned the right inside the locker room, inside the clubhouse, inside the overall offensive personnel to earn the title of QB1. And now I think a lot of people respect him for it. The thing is that he is going to be going up against one of the best defenses in college football. While it is at home, and while this could be a matchup that ends up benefiting the Buckeyes late in the fourth quarter just because of the atmosphere, the ambiance, what is going to be the matchup of all matchups, I still look at this defense as being one of the most physically dominant units in the sport. Yes, they lost a lot this offseason. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But the names that they have brought in and the names that they have elevated, they have a lot of high hopes in. They believe that Malik Muhammad can be a Jahdae Barron 2.0, moving from CB2 over to CB1. They love Jalen Gilbo, who is a do-it-all defensive back. You might see in the nickel, you may see on the outside. You have Mookie Taft on the back end of the secondary. You also have 2 of the better pass rushers in the SEC. Colin Simmons back. He was phenomenal as a freshman. What is he going to look like now in year 2 of Pete Kwiatkowski's defense? You also have Trey Moore. At one point, he was the American Defensive Player of the Year, and he was one of the better situational third down pass rushers in the SEC. Minard Watson comes on in from Syracuse. He has been killing it in camp. You also have guys like Hero Canoe and Jordan Brevard and Travis Shaw from North Carolina, who are going to make up that interior defensive line, which has been one of the biggest selling points to Texas's success over the last 2 years when they were in the Big 12 and when they transitioned to the SEC. So the thing that I'm going to wonder about is what happens after those first 3 drives. Because I think you can give him a mulligan on those 3. If he ends up going 3 and out and maybe gets a couple first downs, but unfortunately it's a good third down pass rush by Pete Kwiatkowski's defense, they kind of force him out of the pocket, he's probably going to be fine. And then the third drive, let's just say it ends in a field goal. What happens after you've had multiple reps to kind of gel, be cohesive, build a rapport and a balance together? I think that you're in a good spot to kind of figure out what the expectations are for the rest of that game. And again, the same thing goes for Arch Manning. Because whether or not we want to say that Ohio State is replacing a ton of defensive talent and a defensive coordinator in Jim Knowles with Matt Patricia, who, whether or not you want to admit that this is a good move, it's an underwhelming move compared to what you had with Jim Knowles a season ago as the play caller. It still is Ohio State. They still recruit top 5 classes every single year. They went out in the portal and they brought in 2 really good additions with Bo Atkinson coming off of the edge of North Carolina. You have Edric Houston, who I think is going to have a big time role this year, even if he's limited in this game. You still have Sonny Styles. You still have Godwin Ingebrigtsen. I know I just Dason Ingebrigtsen. I know I butchered his name, but still, you have him at cornerback. You still have Caleb Downs, who, for my money, may be the best defensive player in the sport. So much like I'm saying about Julian Sain, I could flip it and say about Arch Manning. Those first 3 drives, maybe give him a mulligan. What you look like after that first quarter, maybe the reason we define who's going to win this game. I agree with Tom. The run game in this matchup on both sides is going to be really potent. What are we going to get from CJ Donaldson? What are we going to get from James Peoples? What are we going to get from Trey Wisner? What are we going to get from CJ Baxter? Whoever can be the better supporting cast for their quarterback making a career high start, I think is going to end up being the reason why one of these teams win. I also agree with Tom. I think Texas wins this game. But I've said this before. I've said this on my own show, and I've said this everywhere else. This game is played any other week besides the opener. I think Ohio State wins. They're just going to have too much going their way. Because of it's the opener, I just wonder if it's going to be too much with all this new to be able to combat a team like Texas.
Is it fair to say that Arch would win the head-to-head? I mean, maybe this is just an easy take, but I have more confidence in Arch, but I have more confidence as well in Ohio State's weapons.
Yeah.
Does that make it easier on saying?
It should, but again, to the points that Cole just laid out, if they don't back up saying with the running game, it's really not going to matter all that much. I just don't love young quarterbacks being asked to throw the ball more than 25 times at this level in this magnitude of a game. So if that attempt number continues to balloon during this game, I don't necessarily love that. But still, you do like the weapons, and you're going to have to potentially get creative in the ways that you get the ball into the hands of Jeremiah Smith and company, even if he is the greatest wide receiver in college football, arguably the best player in college football right now. Again, I just think the expectations for Arch Manning are for him to walk on water. And that's not fair, but that's really what it is. That's what most of the world is looking at. So if he isn't that guy that can put the team on his back, I think there's going to be a very big reaction to what comes out of this game. Can he do that? Again, Cole, you've watched more SEC ball than I have. There's not enough data. There's not enough of a sample size. Like what he did against Georgia last year, he was a deer in headlights, and that was a rough game for Texas, period. And the 2 games that he did start last year, I believe it was 2, was against inferior competition. So how much can you really glean from it?
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that you have to look at this still being a good supporting cast around Arch. Whether or not we think it's at the exact same level as what Ohio State has, you have 2 exceptional running backs. You have a great tight end that you brought in Jack Endries. Ryan Wingo was supposed to be just alongside Cam Coleman and Ryan Williams. He just couldn't find his footing because Matthew Golden stole the show. So this is another wide receiver that we're going to see come on in and maybe have the Xavier Worthy type effect for a quarterback that is trying to find his footing. I love Emmett Mosley. I think that was one of the more underappreciated signings of the offseason by any program. He led the ACC among freshmen in receptions last year. And you still have DeAndre Moore that's going to be playing in the slot. So the supporting cast for, I think, Ohio State is more proven. It's more, I know what I'm getting in them. Where Texas, it's like, I don't know what I'm getting, but I have high hopes. And you flip it, it kind of feels that way with the quarterbacks. You expect Arch Manning to deliver. You expect Arch Manning to do X, Y, and Z because if we have an understanding simply based off a few games, we don't know what we're going to get in Julian saying. Doesn't mean it's good. Doesn't mean it's bad. I just truly believe whoever has the more dominant supporting cast on Saturday is going to be the one that ends up walking away with the dub. And honestly, I don't want to put any pressure on the quarterbacks. I did a radio hit with SiriusXM on Saturday, and somebody asked me, what are your thoughts on Arch Manning? I think Arch is going to underwhelm in the eyes of the national media because of the progress and the potential we put him on this pedestal to be. But that doesn't mean that Texas is going to walk away with a loss.
Let's do some score predictions. You guys are both taking Texas. Give me a score.
Cole?
I got 24-21 final score. I think a late touchdown pass from Arch Manning to Ryan Wingo gets it in the fourth quarter.
Give me 30-27, Texas. I think it's going to be close.
I'm going to go Cole's score, but I'm going to flip it. I will take Ohio State, and why not just say that Jeremiah Smith is the game-winning touchdown? I'll steal his score. Actually, I just did a show and had to give a score prediction, so I was like trying to find what that score was, so I'm not giving out 6 different ones, but maybe I should write these things down. 24-21 Ohio State finds a way.
I will counter argue one thing. If it does happen that way, I think Cardinal Tate's on the receiving end of that touchdown. I think Cardinal Tate is the one that that will be the X factor in this game. How big of a role is he going to have?
Yeah. Up next.
The decoy, we'll see.
Let's roll Bama. I'll pass it on to Tom here.
So this is great because we have a Florida State rep, we have Bama rep, so I get to step back and play host, which is my favorite thing to do. So 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, Florida State hosts Alabama. We've talked about this game a lot, obviously. Old Tommy Castellanos has given us a lot of bulletin board material. So, TJ, I'll start with you as this is your platform. Why would Florida State potentially score the upset?
Yeah, I mean, I think not to simplify it a ton, but just, everything has to go right for FSU, right? Weather plays into their favor. Simpson underperforms and puts the ball in harm's way too much, and Florida State does a good job taking care of the ball. They were one of the worst in the country last year at turnover margin. They had 6 takeaways on the season in 12 games, 4 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. That has to be better, right? Like they've got to up that number a ton over the season, but you got to hope that, Simpson gives you a couple, right? Or they put the ball on the ground because of the weather. You got to hope that Castellanos runs the ball effectively. This is not 2013 Gus Malzahn. It's also not Alabama's Nick Saban defense, which consistently struggled with that. But you got to hope that some of that carries over and he's able to game plan well enough to have some big splash plays when it's unexpected from the option. And Castellanos has to make the right reads. They have to withstand the early punch. You look at the rosters, and I'm a huge FSU fan. I'm a huge homer. I'm going to be at the game. I'm going to be cheering my lungs out. All those things. But you really try to break this game down. And how many guys on FSU's roster would start over the guy on the other side of the roster? 1, 2, 3 might be pushing it, right? When you think about it from that perspective, not to make it such a political or easy answer, but everything has to go right for Florida State to get this upset. And not in a massive way. You don't need 6 turnovers, but you got to win the turnover margin. You got to win the time of possession battle. You got to hope that a couple of Bama's drives stall and they settle for field goals, right? You got to hope the weather's in your favor and that you don't turn the ball over, but they do. So yeah, every little thing probably has to go FSU's way in this. Have crazier things than FSU upsetting Bama happen in college football? Absolutely. This would not be on the Richter scale of a 10 out of 10 for Florida State to win this. You're playing a home game. You've got 51 new players on a roster. You've got a coach and an offensive coordinator who has had some success in this Bama matchup. Again, how much does that matter? Saban and DeBoer? Probably less. But I do think that there are reasons that this could go your way. I just think you need a lot of things to tick in your box for it to happen. Am I predicting Florida State to win? Not really. But I think that it's doable, but you need a lot to happen.
Cole, year 2 under DeBoer, is this an opportunity to show to the Alabama fans that are still pretty ticked off about what happened last season? That it's not that Alabama's back, because I don't think Alabama ever left necessarily, but that's hey, we're fine. We are still Alabama.
They were always fine. Every time they were going to be fine. Keep in mind that this is a coach coming on in fresh off of playing in a national title who had to make a choice decision on what was going to be his long-term future and was told, you're going to be replacing the greatest coach to ever live. Expectations in Tuscaloosa are high. The overall gravitas of what we expect for our program is high. What we expect to do in the marquee matchups are high. And yet still, he ended up having a pretty successful first season when you boil it all down. The Michigan game, inexcusable. The loss to Vanderbilt on the road, inexcusable. But people seem to forget you also beat Georgia. You also mollywopped LSU in Death Valley, a place that Nick Saban owned LSU for years and years on end. They also were able to set the tone early on against Wisconsin. They were able to win multiple matchups and not find ways to shoot themselves in the foot against Missouri and South Carolina, a South Carolina team that ended up being potentially a top 12 roster in college football last year. But because of what the expectations are down in Tuscaloosa, he underachieved. But remind yourself, This was a guy that put together back-to-back top 15 scoring offense at the University of Washington. He had a Heisman finalist as his quarterback. He had multiple 1,000-yard receivers. He had multiple 1,000-yard running backs. He had a defense that was sustainable enough to be able to lead his team to a national title. He's a 5-0 against Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, and Dan Lanning all time. So he's shown you against some of the more proven coaches in college football and rising stars in the industry, he is exactly the type of person you want in the trenches. And best of all, Tom, he's got back the hidden weapon. That is Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator. One of the biggest blessings for his career was being able to trust Grubb to call the plays, design the offense, run certain formations that he had a lot of trust in. And bottom line, he ended up going out of his way to have a sustainable offense that could easily let Grubb just call the shots, and he would just sit back in the wayside and go ahead and worry about recruiting and worry about development of talent and, worry about going out and bringing in the right pieces and shaking the right hands. That's what he was able to do, and now he has that back in Tuscaloosa. There's a reason why Alabama, I think this year, is going to have one of the more dynamic passing attacks. It's because if you have the right offensive coordinator for the right type of quarterback. No offense to Jalen Milroe, but you have Ty Simpson, who is a good athlete, who was a 5-star talent coming out of high school, who also proved to Nick Saban and Kalen DeBoer that he was the right guy to lead this team. And let's say he isn't the right guy. We actually get to week 1 and it's 2 interceptions in the first half. You have 2 guys waiting behind in Austin Mack that was handpicked by Ryan Grubb to lead the offense at Washington, and Keelan Russell, who was handpicked by Kalen DeBoer to be the long-term answer down in Tuscaloosa. So the personnel is there. The offensive identity is there. I do wonder about what this run game is going to be without Jam Miller. How are you going to trust what is going to be a probably 2 tandem backfield in Richard Young and Daniel Hill with the mix of Dre Washington thrown on in? But you still have, I think, an overall balanced unit, an overall consistent roster, and really, in my opinion, one of the more, I would say, impressive teams on paper in college football. But that's the thing, is that you don't win games on paper. You win them on field. And just to give teams a little bit of hope here, with all of this new, with all of this unknown, that may actually end up benefiting Florida State. Because if nobody knows what to make of Florida State, I don't even think Florida State fans know truly what to make of Florida State in this game. So it would not be the biggest shock to watch Alabama struggle at times against this FSU squad. Not because of Gus Malzahn, because of, I don't know, where am I looking for a certain player to be that X factor? Because every single one of them could be the X factor and a reason why Florida State pulls off the upset.
TJ, to that point, outside of looking at Castellanos, a quarterback, who do you think is that X factor on the offensive side of the ball that when it's like, got to have it play, that's where Florida State's looking?
I mean, I think you got to think it's Squirrel White. I think Deuce Robinson is clear and above the wide receiver 1 here, but I think he's going to get a lot of attention. And not that, Bama doesn't have options in their secondary to match up pretty well, but I kind of like the idea that, Cole had in the Ohio State-Texas game. Jeremiah Smith's going to get a lot of attention, not just in this game, but this whole year. Can Squirrel White kind of find the way? He's supposedly been 100% in practice the last few days. He was a little bit dinged up earlier. If he can kind of get off, right? If he, now do I have him going for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns? No. But if he can kind of pick his moments and be that guy, on third down, when they need to move the sticks, catching stuff down inside the red zone, that's where I think Florida State can, I wouldn't even call it exploiting an advantage, but he can be the X factor for Florida State. I'm not pinning my hopes on Florida State winning this game on Squirrel White. That's not my take at all. But if he's able to have a productive day for you, if he's able to move the chains, if he's able to, on an option type play, take you deep, right, and get over top of the coverage, I think that's where Florida State can kind of look to exploit. Again, I wouldn't call it an advantage, but kind of a hidden advantage at times.
I'll tell you this, Squirrel White did not play in the 3rd Saturday in October last year for Tennessee, in a win for Tennessee. The year before, down in Tuscaloosa against Alabama's defense. 11 catches, 111 yards, 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
He is going to have to be the X factor in this game, in my opinion.
Look at me and Cole agreeing. Look at setting aside everything else. It's the most beautiful week of the year.
I'm an unbiased person. I want good football games.
Yeah.
I want to be smart. I want you to continue to come back to the channel and say, not clickbait, it's great content. So I'm going to say what is the truth. And the truth is, Squirrel White is going to have to be that dude.
The truth is that Michigan could go 8-4 this season. I do want to go back.
5 this season.
Cole, really quickly, and then I do want to get score predictions from you guys. What do you think Alabama and Grubb ask of Ty Simpson? How much do you think they ask?
Be a point guard. Be a good point guard that gets the ball into the right hands. I've said this multiple times, and TJ, if you want to clip this, please do. If you want Alabama to be a team that can run it to the national title, you need 2013 A.J. McCarron to be back on the sidelines in Tuscaloosa. That's what you need from Ty Simpson. High-profile quarterback that is definitely more athletic than what McCarron was, but making the right decisions at the right times. Over 3,100 passing yards, over 25 touchdowns, under 10 interceptions, a completion percentage around 65 to 68% every single game, anywhere between 275 and 300 passing yards a game. You are coasting your way to Atlanta. You're coasting your way to a college football playoff appearance. There are reasons to believe that this is one of the more slept-on wide receiver rooms in college football because if everybody looks at the top guy in Ryan Williams. I'm going to be completely frank. I think this is the year Jeremy Bernard breaks on out. I think Isaiah Horton coming on in from Miami was one of the best additions because of his previous relationship with Ty Simpson. So that's going to benefit both parties because they already know what they're looking like. I think that you have some really good young players in the building. I think that Rico Scott is one. I think that you throw in Jalen Mbakwe, what he's going to be. I think that Cole Adams fully healthy could be a really good chain mover on third down situations. You got to be a point guard. You don't need to be anything like an all-pro. You don't need to be the X factor. You can be a part of this Alabama lore of quarterbacks that won national titles simply by not putting the ball in harm's way. If Ty Simpson does that, I think Alabama coasts in most games.
All right, score predictions. Cole, how you feeling?
Look, I want to believe that this is going to be a close game. I do. I don't think it is. I think for the first half it is, and then the second half we go, okay, time to get to work, and this is where Ty Simpson goes off. I got a final score of 38-17.
I'm a little closer. Maybe it's just the homer in me, but yeah, give me something like, but not a super competitive game. 30-21. I'll say that Florida State can get a couple of touchdowns. Castellanos will kind of get his at times, but I don't know that this is super competitive. And I think if Florida State was to lose this game by 9 points, I don't think they'd be jumping for joy, but not getting embarrassed would be a big. I hate moral victories, right? Especially when you're going to the game and you are a fan and you support and everything else like that. But I think if you looked at this and you kept it within 10, that'd be a pretty good moral victory for Florida State. Playing, again, maybe the national champion, certainly a playoff type team. 31-20, maybe that's the 30-21. Sorry, maybe that's the homer in me speaking, but I think they can keep it somewhat competitive.
Could happen. You beat the spread. That's a win.
Yeah.
I'm not betting that.
Boys, we beat the spread.
Suck it, Vegas. What do you got, Tom?
I am leaning in Cole's direction. I do think the first quarter and a half it's competitive. Those first 3 drives that we always talk about, I think that's where that bulletin board material that Castellanos and company have put out there, that's where some of that vitriol is going to happen. But I think the second half is going to be kind of tough to watch, honestly. So give me 42-17. Wow.
So even worse than me.
Yeah, it just feels like one of those games where Bama's just going to be like, this is who we are. And again, I side with you that Alabama was never not fine last year. It's just that the expectations are Saban and being perfect and winning a national title every year. I think this is an opportunity where DeBoer's finally had a chance to breathe, recruit, put his team together the way that he wants it, get his staff organized, as he put it. This is just a chance for Alabama to tell everybody we're still Alabama.
Man, so you're saying that basically Kalen DeBoer should have gone to Michigan then, because that would have been just the exact same amount of level.
He still would have gone 8-4.
8-4, they still would have been pissed off at us.
All right, we got a super chat here. Let's talk about this before we get to Clemson LSU. ESPN's FPI metrics are Cal poop emoji. Listen, we didn't talk about this on last week's show, but just very quickly, Cole, did you see the Cannell tweet where ESPN moved people up from the summer, moved other people down? Clemson's down in like the low teens, I think, at this point. Listen, you're the SEC guy on here. What do you make of some of the movement in FPI from the summer until now, when for a lot of these teams, nothing has really changed, but it does kind of fuel the conspiracy?
I think that the FPI needs to be a part of the conversation, not the entire conversation. I will say that, again, when you look at the SEC and you look at the strength of schedule and you look at the recruiting metrics and you also look at the margin of victory, there's a reason why several of these teams always find a way to get up to the top. But at the same time, I think that if you threw in a Clemson, if you threw in a Big 12 team, there certainly are ones that we have seen on paper be able to hold their own. They can make it a game. They can make it a battle. And also, in my personal opinion, the FPI rankings are they're another rankings. It's like the AP rankings. We can go ahead and throw them out there. People are going to agree with them. People are going to disagree with them. They're always going to find a little bit of a hole in the process. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't. Like, if you want to go ahead and bank everything off the FPI rankings, that's on you, and that's your testimony you can live with.
I wish On3 would come up with their own metric just for what it's worth. I think it'd be a little, but I just because I want to see a little bit more diversity. I wish Fox had one too. Like give us 2 or 3 of these things that are all kind of calculated.
Fox has one where Michigan has the number 1 schedule every single year because of course it's got to be Michigan.
There would be their FPI it wouldn't be FPI, right? But whatever the Fox alternative to FPI would be 8.4. On to the battle for Death Valley. The battle for the real Death Valley. I guess it's happening over 2 years, though, so maybe it's not just a one-parter. Does LSU finally get a win in week 1? They've got a tough test against Clemson this week. Cole, you can start us out on this SEC versus ACC preview.
It's going to be really interesting to see how quickly this offense can all gel together and how quickly this defense is going to be looking like a unit that has been cohesively put together, not in the offseason, but over time. Some really big news came out this past week. Garrett Nussmeier switching his number from 13 to 18. And for those of you that don't know what the significance of that is, the person who wears number 18 down in Baton Rouge is the epitome of what stands for Tiger football. And there hasn't been a quarterback to wear that number since Matt Mock wore it in 2003 when they won the national title. There's been players who have worn that number, and there have been a very laundry list of historic names that have donned 18 that are part of the fraternity and big vocal fixtures of LSU football. But there hasn't been a quarterback at that vicinity. I think that speaks incredible volume about what is the expectation for Garrett Nussmeier and how much he has become the epitome of what is LSU moving into 2025. You live and die based off of how well he is going to play. You are balanced based off of what he does. I think that he is going to have to strike early. I think that he is going to have to show you that this passing attack is potent, that they can trust that there are multiple new weapons that come on in and they're going to take their advantages and they're going to be explosive downfield and they're not going to be afraid to go ahead and take those shots. But in my opinion, what really could decide this game is the defense. Again, Blake Baker comes on in last season. He has a good foundation in place. There are some moments where throughout the year you feel like that the offense is at least, the defense is trending upward. And then there are moments where the mobile quarterback finds a way to beat you or they give up 300 passing yards in a performance and it's not good enough. So what did they do? They went out, they upgraded at every single level on the front 7, bringing in Jack Pyburn, bringing in Patrick Payton. In the secondary, they got rid of everybody. I mean, quite literally everybody. They have AJ Halsey now starting from Houston. They have Tamarcus Cooley coming on in from NC State. They have DJ Pickett, the 5-star phenom, who has been phenomenal, but he also is split reps with Mansour Delane from Virginia Tech, who has been probably the standout of camp. But all of this is simply just based off of what we know going into this game off of practice. We got to figure out what is this going to be coming off of actual live reps. Can it be cohesive? And to be completely transparent, it's a good test, I think, for LSU's defense because there's going to be very few offenses that are as systematically sound and as potent as Clemson. They have 3 wide receivers that all could be All-Americans by the season's end. They have a great tight end room. I like their running back room. I think that their offensive line having that much continuity underneath Matt Luke, one of the best minds when it comes to developing offensive linemen, is massive for his progression. And on top of all of that, we could throw in the fact that we have now a good running back tandem, even though you don't have Phil Mop around the show anymore. You still have a couple of guys, Davidson, the freshman. He's going to be, I think, a really big impact of this team. But then it's Kate Klubnik. Kate Klubnik, for many of us, is QB1 going into this year. And if he's not QB1, he certainly is QB2, or at worst, QB3. If he continues to build the way that he played late last season, the Texas game, he's the only quarterback last year to throw for 300 yards against this Texas Longhorns defense, which was arguably one of the best in college football in the last 5 years. That's not what you're going to see against LSU. If you can slow him down, if you could show that he is able to be kind of more human, I think that LSU has a really good shot of winning this football game. But more than anything else, Brian Kelly needs this one. I mean, at some point, you could end up having a 10-2 season. You could go to Atlanta. You could win the SEC title. But there still will be people who say you couldn't start off fast. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how you got here. I'm still going to look at that performance and judge you. Because if we're still seeing, we're stuck in emotion. We're stuck in a rut that we got to get out of. We do not lose week one games. And we do not lose week one games to competition that we view inferior compared to us.
I think the consequences from this game for the playoff, kind of going off of what TJ was talking about with Texas, Ohio State, will be enormous. And it does feel like another coin flip game. I know that Clemson is favored by 4, I believe, and that home field advantage is going to matter. I'd like Cade Klubnik in this game more than I like Garrett Nussmeier at this point in time. I'm very curious to see what Tom Allen's defense looks like. Does that have a little bit more teeth, so to speak, in this game? Again, I agree with Cole. Brian Kelly cannot afford to lose another season opener. At the same time, once you get to December and you're looking back on this game, if LSU comes up short and loses to, say this is the potential ACC champion in Clemson, that is going to hurt their ability in terms of seeding. If this is maybe the 3rd or 4th SEC team that's in, you're right on that fringe. And if they have a stellar year from here on out and they win out, then it doesn't mean that much in the grand scheme of things. If you're Clemson and you get dog walked by LSU in your stadium to open the year, now it's going to be like, okay, we're going to let in one ACC team this year because you guys didn't impress us very much. And again, LSU very well could still be that 3rd or 4th best team in the SEC. Just depends on how things shake out in that conference. So I think the postseason ramifications for this are going to be really, really big. But TJ, I defer to you as the ACC guy in terms of what specifically Clemson has on the field that really presents a challenge for LSU.
Yeah, and I'll probably ping pong this right back, hockey assist this back over to Cole in just a second. But I do agree with you on the to me, it feels like LSU needs a little bit more just because of their 2 schedules. Not only the 0-5 of the last 5 years to open the season, but you lose this one. And then you look at DJ Lagway coming to town in a few weeks. You look at the fact that you got to go to Tuscaloosa. You look at the fact that they play a really tough schedule with A&M on it, and they got to go, to the Grove? Like, it doesn't let up, right? And whereas Clemson could lose this game, I mean, shoot, they got, what was that game last year? 31-3 against Georgia to open the thing up. And Clemson stumbled a couple other times outside of that, the Louisville game, the South Carolina game at the end of the year. But if they just take care of business in the ACC, which I kind of expect them to, I know that Georgia Tech's tough. They play some games that you can't just sleepwalk through, but their ACC schedule is going to give them the grace here. Whereas LSU drops it and you're looking at the rest of the schedule saying, all right, boys, we got to buckle up with a lot of big games left. To me, the biggest thing I'm looking for in this is how does LSU's line, offensive line, how do they handle that Clemson defensive line? If they do, LSU's got a great chance in this game. If they don't, this thing could get ugly. This could be a 10-point game going to the 4th quarter with a chance of Clemson salting it away with another touchdown, or LSU having to fight their way back, claw their way back. No pun intended for the Tiger-Tiger matchup. But that is the matchup that I want to see the most is, can LSU's rebuild offensive line, can they hold up against, a top 2 defensive line in the ACC, right? And there's a pretty big gap there, right? It's Miami and Clemson having really good defensive lines, and then it's the rest of the conference. But a really good defensive front from Clemson going after that LSU line. Man, we've seen Nussmeier have real clunkers of games. You think back to that Florida game last year. You think back to Bama beating the hell out of them last year in Baton Rouge. There are games where Nussmeier just has not looked like, and now, of course, yeah, he's had games like the Ole Miss game where he's just gone absolutely berserk. If they put pressure on him and he's not able to get comfortable because that Clemson defensive line is kind of owning that LSU offensive line, Cole, I want to get your take on that matchup specifically too. Like, that's what I think this game comes down to. As much as we make about the quarterback play and everything else, the weapons that both teams have out at wide receiver, which are phenomenal, if that LSU offensive line holds up, they have got a great shot. If it doesn't, long day in the the Clemson Death Valley.
I know that I mentioned Gideon Davidson. I also want to throw out Adam Randall. I know he is probably going to be the majority starter. There will be reps again for Gideon Davidson, but Adam Randall is going to be your lead running back. Just want to throw that out there. You're 100% right. It all comes down to this defense. I thought, again, a very good signing this offseason was going out and bringing in Tom Allen. He is phenomenal as a play caller. And honestly, I think that he was a big reason why we saw Penn State make it to the semifinals last season. So he is coming on in, and they have talent. They have talent at every single level. I mean, you look at just TJ Parker. That's a top 5 defensive end in the sport. Now, top 5 defensive end in the ACC in the sport. Peter Woods may be the best interior defensive lineman in the sport. Will Heldt comes on in from Purdue, and that's a guy that last season had some success when he was at the Big Ten school. So what's he going to do now playing up against competition that maybe is a little bit unproven in the ACC? You also still have a Sammy Brown at linebacker. You have Wade Woodeds at linebacker. Avian Terrell is going to be a potential top 40 pick. Khalil Barnes is going to be a top potential day 2 selection. So there's talent on this defense that is going to get after this offensive line and put pressure on Garrett Nussmeier to have to deliver. I want to combat and just say that when you look at Garrett Nussmeier, part of the reason that he had clunkers or he had bad turnovers wasn't all on him. He had to throw the football 115 times more than any other quarterback in the SEC, and he still had the same amount of interceptions as Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers, both teams of which had at least some bit of a run game. The run game at times was obsolete down at LSU. So in my opinion, it's not just about stopping Cade Klubnik and stopping this rushing attack for LSU. It's also being able to trust your rushing attack to take pressure off of Garrett Nussmeier. You cannot be a one-dimensional offense in this game. The offensive line is going to have to win its one-on-one battles. It's going to have to create avenues and creases for Caden Durham and for whoever else is toting the rock that day to be able to pile drive forward and not be in second and 9 or in 3rd and 8. You have to be in 2nd and 4 or 3rd and 1 to open up the playbook for Joe Sloan. That to me is going to be such a critical element of this game. Last season, it was a critical element to the success and downfall of LSU. Honestly, that may be the reason why we view LSU as a national title contender this year, because for the first time in 2 seasons, they truly can run the football. They aren't putting all the pressure on 18 to be their guy. They can actually do things that end up benefiting all parties at the end of the day.
We have scores on this one, boys?
I'll let Tom go first since he's unbiased, technically.
Tom's on mute.
Oh, God, Tom's...
Is he back? No, my fault. I kind of expect low scoring in this one. And I know 2 great quarterbacks. We just got done singing their praises, but give me 21-17 LSU.
I have 21-17 as well. LSU. I think a touchdown late by Garrett Nussmeier gets the job done.
I will be the ACC homer. Give me Clemson. I'm trying to remember what I just said, like literally an hour ago. Something like 31-21. I think they salt this away, and it's competitive, but they find a way to get a touchdown late to make it not look as good. I just have a little more confidence in Clemson at home. If this was in Death Valley, I'd probably the other Death Valley. Sorry, I'd probably go the other way. Listen, we talked about this a little bit, but Anthony, I appreciate you in here talking with us. Florida and LSU got ranked over Clemson, Miami, SMU, 2 teams that made the playoff and a 10-win team like Miami. I mean, Cole, I'm sure your thoughts haven't changed too much on FPI, in the last 10 minutes, but I'll tell you what was really crazy to me is Tennessee being up in the top 8 of FPI. I know that's not what the commenter specifically asked about, but that's an interesting one to me. Do you have thoughts on Florida being that high? Clemson dropping? I know I kind of just asked you that again, but since
Florida has the toughest schedule in college football. Like, I'm not saying that they belong in that situation, but let's say that they end up going 9-3. 9-3 with that schedule is 11-1 in other conferences. That has to count for something. And it does say a little bit about what we are thinking about the future of Florida football. I'm sorry, I'm not going to get behind Miami. I'm just not. Like, I can understand the Clemson one. I think Clemson's far too low in the rankings. They belong in somewhere in the top 7 because they are the most returning production in college football. But in my humble opinion, until I see it with Carson Beck, until I see Corey Featherman's defense come on out and actually deliver, I'm not putting Miami anywhere near the top 10. Like, for me personally, they're a top 15 team at most. And they're certainly below LSU in my standard.
I really worry about Florida. Like, can Lagway stay healthy the entire season? Like, if the whole team hinges on his availability, that's a little worrisome.
Yeah, I wouldn't have SMU. The SMU is the only one that I was fine with them dropping. In fact, they might be a little overranked right now. I'm a little low on SMU, but we'll see. Wild card.
I'm not buying any stock in SMU. If that makes you feel any better, it doesn't, Anthony. I know, but still, it doesn't. I don't think that's going to happen.
Wild card today. All right, we can all make one joke, but then let's really we don't get so many hate comments. What are your thoughts on Bryce Underwood being named the starter? Okay, I'll start this off before. I love this. I think this is smart. If you're going to do it eventually, just get it done now. Get him the early reps so that he's somewhat ready for the Oklahoma game as much as you can. I just think this was the right move. There was no doubt about that.
This makes the most sense. Mikey Keene, the transfer from Fresno State, has been dealing with injuries a lot during the offseason, so that competition was not what it could have been. But I think kind of like Bryce Underwood's predecessor at Michigan and J.J. McCarthy starting potentially here for the Minnesota Vikings, he's starting because of the money. I think there's certainly the ability that goes with it and the hype and the expectations. But Bryce Underwood, yeah, you're spending, $10 million on this guy? You have Barstool Sports behind you. You have a huge investment. You've made a big shakeup during the offseason. And I think he gives you the best chance to win. I think Mikey Keene, if he had been named the starter, if he'd been healthy, you would have been safe, right? I think Bryce Underwood, considering the deficiencies at wide receiver, is going to help Michigan ultimately offensively. And it's going to be just a heavy dose of the run. He's going to have to be involved with his legs quite a bit. And there's a lot of reason for positivity with Michigan's defense. I talked about it last week. I think the world of what they have defensively coming back this season. I think they're going to be a very good team. It is also plausible they lose 4 games on their schedule. There's also a chance they only lose 2 games on their schedule. But I try to be pragmatic and reasonable, unlike most fans from Ann Arbor, Michigan. So there's that. But Bryce Underwood, it is what it is. I think it makes sense for you to start him. He's going to give you the best chance to win, and the money supports it.
Bryce Underwood is the best quarterback on that roster, far and away. No questions asked. Bryce Underwood is going to go through some growing pains because of the roster and supporting cast around him. I think the offensive line is great. I really do think that the offensive line will be the backbone of this team. I think the defense, despite losing talent like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Will Johnson, still is going to be a very solid unit this year because I trust what they have in a play caller and what they have in the type of development of talent. But I don't know what I'm getting in the wide receiver room. I don't know what I'm getting in Colson Loveland's replacement. Justice Haynes has got to live up to expectations this year to take pressure off of Bryce Underwood. And if you go 8-4, let me make this clear. 8-4 is not a bad season, depending on who the losses are to. If it's Oklahoma and Oklahoma ends up being a 9-3 team in the SEC, it's considered a good loss if it's not a blowout. Let's say Nebraska, with one of their easiest schedules, but a good offseason, ends up going 9-3. That's a manageable loss. You're not going to have your head coach for that game. He's going to be on a suspension for that matchup. The USC game. What do we make of USC this year? Could USC end up being the surprise team of 2025 and be in Indiana and go on a run to the college football playoff at 11-1? It's a manageable loss. Ohio State, fresh off of winning a national title, they have been desperately trying to get back to the mountaintop and not care about winning the big one, but winning this big one. If those are your 4 losses, it's not the end of the world. It's a retooling year. And honestly, if he's even better than that, 9-3 and 10-2 is on the table. But my God, Michigan fans, you got the quarterback. You got the dude that you think is going to be a great fit for Chip Lindsey's system. There is potential at all these other spots. There's also room for growing pains. So accept the fact that this may be a year that you don't go to the national title, you don't go to the Big Ten championship, you don't go to the college football playoff, and yes, you found a way to beat up on Alabama last season with your backups. That says incredible lengths about where you are as a program with Sharon Moore calling the shots. I also think that that was a one-time fluke, and you're probably still going to have your faults. You're still going to be an 8-14 this year, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world, Michigan fans. Say it with me as we hail to your victors. It's not the end of the world.
I think the reasonable thing to project ahead when you get a talent, the caliber of Bryce Underwood, is it's still a development process, right? So you're looking not at 2025, you're looking at 2027 as a chance where it's like, hey, we can build around this guy, he can develop, and we can have a really special year. There's nothing wrong with a year where they go as bad as 10-2, or I'm sorry, as bad as 8-4, or as good as 10-2. Here's the one thing I will say. Considering that in the comments section last week, apparently we got a lot of feedback from Michigan fans. If on October 25th, Aiden Childs somehow bows up and Michigan State, little brother, beats Michigan, I will be laughing at you out loud on this channel for the bulk of the show. I will find ways to bring it up and integrate it into the show. So I just want you guys to remember that we keep receipts as well.
When I look at Michigan's schedule, and I know we did a full breakdown on them, if they can take care of the business in the games that they're supposed to take care of business in.
Yes.
I really look at this as a schedule, even for Bryce Underwood, that is manageable. You got to split Oklahoma and Nebraska, right? And that's a tough task. 2 on-the-road games against what we think will be pretty good quarterbacks, pretty good teams. You got to split Washington and USC. One of those you do get at home against the Huskies. And then you got to beat everybody else, save Ohio State, right? You could lose to Ohio State, and I think it'd be fine. If you do just that, 9-3 is a really good year, and they're going to talk about you as a potential playoff team as long as you're not getting blown out in whatever 3 losses you have. Do I think they make it to 9-3? No. Storylines of Bryce Underwood, though, could be interesting if they do make it to 9-3. Can't stub your toe anywhere like you're talking about the Michigan State game. Can't stub your toe twice in September against Nebraska and Oklahoma. But if you can just cut it into sections, split your first 2 tough ones, split the back-to-back against USC and Washington, and then even if you lose Ohio State, I think 9-3 is a very respectable year. If you can somehow find a way to do one better than that, congratulations, back to the playoff, Willie Crow on the show.
If Bryce Underwood can stay reasonably healthy, because again, the passing game is going to be a challenge for them this year. He's going to be asked to run the ball a lot. So is he going to be banged up? I know he's a big body dude, and a lot of people are comparing him athletically to Cam Newton. Great. You're still going to take a pounding as the year goes on.
Phrasing.
How will this look? How will this look by the end of the season?
All right, before anybody else takes a pounding on here, let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up before we take a pounding. For TJ Pittinger, Cole Thompson, Tom Hannifan, we are back on Wednesday. I don't know what we're going to talk about. Probably Miami, Notre Dame in there. Maybe a Friday night matchup or 2. Yeah, we'll get some more SEC, some more Big Ten, maybe an ACC matchup. I don't even know if there's anything. Well, I guess that Virginia Tech one's not too bad. Syracuse, Tennessee. But we'll figure it out by then. We'll be back live Wednesday at noon. The Power 2 on College Football Addiction. Thank you guys for hanging out. Do us a favor and subscribe over on YouTube if you haven't already. We will talk to you guys soon. I would say enjoy week 1, but we'll be back before week 1 really kicks off. So don't enjoy week 1 yet. Enjoy the Power 2 on Wednesday, and then you can enjoy week 1. See you guys.